I'm Marielle Benjamin. I am Director of Programs at the Parenting Center. Thank you so much for being here today for our speaker series. Ooh, I just got much bigger for myself. So sorry, you'll have to see me at that blown up size. We're so thrilled to have you here. This is part of our initiative to make sure that providers are connected to all of the incredible experts out there. And Dr. McNeil is one of those incredible experts to talk about all of the issues that come up in pediatric practice and that we can also help introduce in pediatric practice. So we're going to get started in a second. I'm going to read Dr. McNeil's bio and we will be good to go. Our Q&A is open all session long. We will be doing questions at the end, but feel free to drop in questions all along the way. And if we can answer them as we go, we will. If not, we'll do it at the end. And there will be some messages and links coming in the chat as well. So send us messages at all if there's anything that's confusing, but the Q&A is open for questions. So Dr. McNeil is a professor of psychology, ACE College professor, and the inaugural Sweeney Family Director of the Center for Educational Research and Action at the University of Notre Dame. Her research focuses on mathematical cognition, symbolic understanding, and how children construct concepts and solve problems. She is a fellow of the Association for Psychological Science and associate editor of Cognitive Science, and has received major awards, including the Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers and an NSF Career Award. Professor McNeil helped establish Tutor ND, a program linking volunteer tutors with cognitive science to support student learning in reading and math. And you can learn a lot more about her about her work in a recent paper or her lab website, both of which will be in the chat. I mean, you're very busy, and we're so honored while in the middle of a conference that Dr. McNeil is here today to talk to all of us. So I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. My slides are no longer being shared. That's correct?
Not. Yeah,
Okay.
I think you need to share them again.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
See here. I think.
There we go. We can see
You're seeing the slides now. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marielle. I am so excited to be here today, and I'm very grateful to you, Marielle, and Dr. Carrie Quinn and your whole team for inviting me to be here today to share. I'm a cognitive scientist, as Marielle suggested, and I study the development of math cognition and symbolic understanding. And I'm really excited to share some ideas for how pediatric care providers can support children's early math knowledge. And I'm excited about this because I love math. And if you think about math, it's a remarkable human accomplishment. Right? It's very uniquely human at the higher levels. And as a cognitive scientist, one reason that I really love math is because it provides me with a unique window into studying the human mind. But fortunately, it's also very practically important. And so studying math and math cognition can help us help other people. Most people don't know this, but children's early math skills at the start of kindergarten are one of the strongest predictors of future academic success. And not just future math success, actually future success in reading, future success in science. And at the start of kindergarten, early math skills are a better predictor of that academic success than pre-literacy skills, than early attention skills, than socio-emotional behaviors. And a lot of people don't know that. The importance of math, of course, isn't limited to the preschool years. The late, great Bob Moses showed us how understanding algebra in particular is a gatekeeper to children's future educational and employment opportunities. And our sociologist colleagues have shown across multiple data sets, longitudinal data sets, that taking advanced math courses in high school uniquely predicts a host of life outcomes, not just related to academic and job success, things you wouldn't expect: cardiovascular health, dementia, and overall mortality. And that's even controlling for other measures of academic attainment. So whether you like math or not, I am here to tell you that it's very, very important, and we should all care about math. So here's a roadmap for this talk. I'm going to start with why early math matters. I already sort of gave a preview of that. Then I'll show you that we may be currently missing an important opportunity to intervene before children come to school. And I'm going to highlight some promising initiatives like the Mount Sinai Parenting Center that are beginning to integrate math into pediatric care. And then I'll offer a few words of caution too about these initiatives. We have to think very carefully about them. And then finally, I will end with some early math milestones and the developmental learning trajectory that I think every parent and pediatrician should know about. So to get us started, I want to show you the math assessment scores of a small randomly selected subset of kindergartners from a study we did a few years ago with a local school. Just to give you some context, approximately 2/3 of the students in this district receive free or reduced price lunch. And this is a screenshot of a subset of the data. The details aren't very important, but I want to orient you to what to look at here. So along the left side are child ID numbers. Across the top are 3 different standardized assessments of early math skills. And the values I have here are basically rough grade level equivalents of the standardized math scores. So preschool in this graphic means they scored at a preschool level of math understanding. K is kindergarten, first is first grade, and so on. And so basically what you're seeing is how 23 different kindergartners in a larger sample scored in early math skills. And this was around November. So you can take a moment to look it over and just think about why I might be showing you this. Like, what is the point of me showing you this? It's kind of small. Is it why would I be doing this? And as you might suspect, the main point here is that it's kindergarten and there are already huge differences in early math understanding before really formal schooling in math has even really gotten started. And we see some children performing at the preschool level and some in the same classroom in the same neighborhood performing at the 2nd or 3rd grade level. And that is very challenging for teachers. And what we know from the research literature is that actually these differences emerge even before the start of kindergarten. And I'm sure it won't surprise you to hear that these early individual differences in math are associated with family income. We all know there are profound inequalities in access to high quality education. Preschool children from low income backgrounds typically have fewer literacy resources in the home. They hear less number talk. They receive less STEM enrichment. And by kindergarten, Duncan and Magnuson have shown that the differences in math knowledge between children from high and low income households already exceeds a full standard deviation. And this difference only widens. Unfortunately, school isn't the great equalizer. The differences between the children in low and high income households only get bigger after that. So students from lower income households frequently have less qualified teachers. They have limited access to rigorous STEM classes and out of school enrichment. And they're also much less likely to have a personal tutor. So these are problems. And a troubling statistic is that children who don't learn algebra by 9th grade are more likely to drop out of high school. They're less likely to attend college. And this is going to perpetuate the cycle of poverty. So obviously, again, math really matters. And I think this starts with early math because math is one of the subjects, if not the subject, that is where it's characteristic that the early skills that you learn and the cognitive representations that you build, that is the foundation for everything you're going to do later. So I will say it again, early math skills at the start of kindergarten are one of the strongest predictors of future success. To make this concrete, here's one highly cited example. This is a study by Tyler Watts and colleagues, and they assessed children at 54 months of age and followed them longitudinally into high school. And after controlling for a host of child and family characteristics, they found that scoring 1 standard deviation higher in math at age 54 months predicted about 1/4 of a standard deviation higher achievement all the way at age 15. And so how children do in preschool math predicts how they're going to do 10 years later, even controlling for almost anything you could think of at that time 1 point. In some ways you might think, oh, okay, well, math at time 1 predicts math at time 2. That's kind of not that interesting. What does that really tell us? It's not satisfying. First of all, there's a third variable problem that could be lurking here. And even if that weren't true, it still isn't specific enough to provide us with a clear goal for treatment. There are so many early math skills and associated cognitive processes. Where should we start? Where should we look? There's too many things to focus on. So researchers in my field, developmental cognitive science, are working to develop theories of change, because if we provide a theory of change for why those early math skills are predicting later math skills, then that can help us talk about the mechanisms of change. It can provide causal frameworks for understanding how and why change happens in a particular context. We don't just want to know what works. We want to know why does it work. That helps us develop better treatment plans. It makes it clear what is supposed to happen in a particular order, and we can make specific predictions and then test if our theories are correct. We need to ask which specific skills are foundational on the developmental learning trajectory, and of those skills, which are actually malleable. We need to focus on the malleable skills that we have control over. And then we can intervene and try to improve those malleable skills and test if our theory is right. Just because something at time 1 predicts something at time 2 or time 3 doesn't mean that intervening to improve that thing will lead to positive outcomes. Even if it does, let's say we do all of the things and we find that the theory is working, that the intervention helps. Now we need to figure out how to do that at scale. That's a really hard problem too. And I think this is exactly where pediatric care providers come in. They can be part of the solution. As Deering and Schnitzer explained in a recent article, most US families, this is something you all probably already know, but most US families with children under 5 visit pediatric care providers for their annual checkups. Pediatricians are a trusted source of information for those families. Families expect you to know a lot of things as pediatric care providers. And families often have unstructured time when they're waiting to see you, either in the waiting room or even in the exam room after talking with a nurse. So all of this creates incredible opportunities for the pediatric care infrastructure. And pediatric care infrastructure already has so many things that can help level the playing field before preschool and kindergarten. You have developmental screening systems and standard operating procedures for administering those. You have a role in promoting awareness among parents for the developmental milestones. And then you also provide a natural channel for sharing quick and evidence-based tips that help parents support specific key foundational skills. So it has amazing potential. We can see that it works. In many studies of Reach Out and Read program, which I'm sure you're familiar with, it's very successful for literacy. It has good evidence. The Mount Sinai Parenting Center is a leader in this space. They understand the power of the pediatric infrastructure. Their mission is to transform pediatric healthcare by using routine visits to promote cognitive, socio-emotional, and relational development. They've created a curriculum called the Keystones of Development, where they model ways to promote early skill building with parents. These are free, scalable resources for providers and parents, and they bring developmental science into everyday pediatric care. They have Spark video series that is focused directly to parents and provides advice for a wide range of developmental skills, including early math. And all of this, again, is free and open, and it's just wonderful that what they're doing. It's amazing. They are doing very great work, and it's very much needed. And I will say, especially when it comes to early math, because we have a very long way to go. There's tremendous potential for primary care providers to help foster early math skills. But despite the fact that I told you at the beginning that early math skills are one of the most robust predictors of future success, math-related milestones are often overlooked during well-child visits due to all the competing priorities that you have. We first noticed this a few years ago when one of our thesis students, Kimberly Walter, asked a simple question. Do pediatricians know how important early math is? By the way, Kimberly is right now a resident in a pediatrics residency program. So it's kind of cool what's happened since this thesis. But her answer was no in her thesis. More recently, working with colleagues at the Mount Sinai Parenting Center and one of our postbacks, Brooke Poston, we took another look at these thesis data along with some of the data that the Mount Sinai Parenting Center had in pre-assessments before people took their Keystones of Development curriculum. So we wanted to see here, how often does math actually come up during well-child visits? So I'm going to show you 2 slides of data of reanalysis of these previous studies. What we found is that across both studies, pediatric care providers discuss math skills far less than other non-health developmental topics like language, literacy, or even screen time. So here on a scale from, on the y-axis, it's reporting, this study used a scale from 0 equals never, 4 equals always, and you can see here that math ranked the lowest in terms of what is being covered in those well-child visits. Here you see the same thing, it's just now reported in a different way in the Mount Sinai Parenting Center survey. The y-axis here is showing basically the average proportion of yes responses when pediatric care providers were asked specific topics. Did you discuss this in your last well-child visit? Again, what you can see here is that math is the lowest category. So if you're a pediatric care provider, you might ask, well, how can I help? What should I do? And I'm going to share some promising ideas about that today. I've already mentioned Reach Out and Read for literacy. It has shown that pediatricians can change home learning environments and help build early language and literacy skills, and that it translates to better language and literacy skills in children. A number of people in the field think we can use that as a model and apply it in the case of numeracy. So I'm going to show you some examples of that, and and then we'll talk about some cautions there. So let's see some examples of this work, some of the work that's happening. One is the Playful Learning Landscapes Action Network. So this isn't pediatric care specific, but the Brookings Institution helped establish this interdisciplinary project that brings together researchers and urban designers. And the goal is to design environments where families are going naturally, and to design them in a way that elicits the kinds of conversations and activities that might help promote learning, including math learning. And this particular group has transformed different spaces like parks, bus stops, and grocery stores into venues for playful learning. And so, of course, the same thing can be done to pediatric offices because they are also spaces where families go. We can try to design environments that encourage math play and number talk. And you probably already know that the Mount Sinai Parenting Center is leading the way, both with their Keystones of Development curriculum and their Spark videos, across a wide range of skills. But in terms of numeracy, they discuss how parents can use mealtime as an opportunity to discuss quantities and size, and how they can be used to perform simple addition and subtraction problems. They also discuss how playing board games and singing childhood songs with number can help children practice math in a fun way. They've created hundreds of messages and posters to populate healthcare spaces that prompt brain building activities between parents and children. And on the slide here, you see an example using weighing and measuring as an opportunity for parents to promote math skills in everyday activities. Another group in Boston did something similar. Researchers and practitioners applied the playful design model to the Brookside Pediatric Clinic. And their goals here were to make the clinic easier to navigate for families. Second, to promote joyful math conversations among the children and the caregivers and the pediatric care providers. And then also for the pediatric care providers themselves, who have so many competing demands, to provide visual clues to help the clinicians assess certain developmental skills when they are in the exam rooms. They decorated the environment. They also developed simple, inexpensive math kits that the clinicians could give to families during the well child visits. And then those kits could be used both while they're waiting in the exam room, but also they could be taken home with them to practice certain things that may help elicit math talk at home. These are all great ideas. I think it's a win. Even just for the sake of aesthetics in the pediatrician's office, it's already a win, right? Environmental interest and beauty are an important part of our world. So just doing this to create welcoming, fun, educationally relevant spaces is a win. But there isn't much research yet showing that these sorts of installations actually affect child outcomes. The closest thing I've seen, now I haven't done I might have missed something, but the closest thing that I've seen comes from a project in which cognitive developmental researchers and the Italian Society of Pediatricians teamed up to create a program called Born to Count. And this was modeled off of their Born to Read program, which is similar to Reach Out and Read. Pediatricians in the treatment group completed a 3-hour interactive workshop on numerical cognition, the predictive importance of early numeracy, and how to talk with parents about math during routine visits. And so some of the things they were suggested to say were asking parents about their child's play and counting habits, giving parents a brief explanation about why early math matters, suggesting playful, age-appropriate home activities like cooking, setting the table, playing number games, and reading storybooks with numbers. And then they also provided parents with printed materials and a math-rich storybook to take home with them. In this study, the researchers evaluated the effects of this workshop longitudinally. So the pre-test was happening around age 3.5, and then the post-test was happening around age 5.5. And so I would like to show you some of the results from this. So first, all pediatricians in the study found the intervention fully compatible with their normal well child visits. All of the parents said they were quite or very interested in learning about math. And as you can see here in this graph, on the y-axis is the percentage of parents who reported that their pediatrician gave them some numeracy related advice. And so what you can see is when they were actually in the treatment group, it worked, right? The manipulation checked work. They're reporting that their pediatrician gave them advice about numeracy. So the manipulation, the treatment worked in terms of its goal. Parents in the treatment group also reported increased frequency of math-related home activities. So talking about number, playing number games. So great. This work led to parents changing their behavior, or at least reporting that they changed their behavior. So we might think about whether it's actual behavior change or just reported behavior change, but it did in fact report their reported frequency of engaging in these sorts of activities. But unfortunately, even though the pediatricians found it easy to integrate math, The parents were receptive to it. It was successful in influencing the parents' frequency of math-related home activities. There wasn't any measurable improvement in children's numeracy scores compared with the control group over the study period. And so this finding, in fact, differs considerably from what we see in terms of the effect of home literacy changes in environment on, say, reading comprehension. And it's not specific to math either, at least in terms of environmental effects, because we also have evidence from Bob Siegler and colleagues at Columbia that the characteristics of, say, math textbooks in elementary, middle school affect children's math knowledge. So this is a puzzle. This is a puzzle that we're going to need to solve. And I have some hypotheses about why it is, and we can talk about them today. But I'm not going to like totally solve it for you. We can sort of talk about why it might be. So we know that incorporating math into pediatric care is feasible. We know that it can have its intended effect on parent behavior, or at least reported parent behavior. Great. But there isn't yet evidence that the approach improves child outcomes. So we have to be cautious. We have to be cautious. We also have to be cautious in thinking about what works for literacy would automatically translate to working in math. This could be an example of Goodhart's law. When we measure something, say parents' use of math talk or parents' use of math activities in the home, and that's our target goal, it can sometimes cease to be actually a good measure. So if we focus on optimizing environments to elicit more math talk or elicit more home math activities, and we're not focusing on the very specific developmental learning trajectory and on the quality or the conceptual depth or the match between children's current level of cognitive development and the activities that we're proposing, then we might actually lose the boost in child learning that we want to see. This actually reminds me of other research in cognitive science that shows a very inconsistent relationship between the time spent on learning tasks and learning outcomes. So learning tasks like homework or reading or studying or you name it, there's a very, very inconsistent relationship between time spent on the things and actual learning outcomes. And the magnitude of benefit differs widely depending on the specific study. So, always just increasing amount of time on task might not be what we want. We want to increase the quality and the match between the input that we're giving and the child's cognitive development level. So how do we avoid the trap of just saying more is always better? How do we make sure when we encourage math talk and home activities that it aligns with how children actually build knowledge of number? That is going to bring me to the point in the talk where I talk about something that I think all parents and pediatricians should know about, how math knowledge builds across time and how to match input with the child's current level. And so we can start by asking the question now, what are some of the important preschool number skills that we want to be focused on? And if I ask that question to people, parents, most people will say counting from 1 to 20 is an important school readiness skill, right? We want kids to be able to count from 1 to 20, and it is. So I'm not saying it's not, it is an important skill. But when preschoolers are learning to count, they simply start by reciting it as a song, right? Like the ABCs. They really have no idea why we count or what it means. Their understanding of the purpose of counting lags behind significantly. And so let me show you this video of a child. And what I'm going to show you first is a child counting with one-to-one correspondence. You can, as you watch, you can say, how many do you think this child understands when he's counting? And then I'm going to show you a different kind of task that measures understanding of the cardinality principle. And you're going to see a very big mismatch in your assessment of what this child understands?
Okay, what's the first one we're gonna do? So do you think you could count these circles? Can you start here?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 20, 60.
Great job, Gavin.
Okay, so not perfect, but maybe you would say, give them up to 10, 15.
You get lucky one. On the plate. Is that one?
Yes.
Thanks. You can throw that. No, it's okay. Okay, you get lucky 2 bananas. Is that 2?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. You want some strawberries? Can you get lucky 3 strawberries? Is that 3?
Yes.
Thanks.
So clearly a mismatch. This child would be what we would call a 2-knower. And interestingly, in every culture that's been studied so far, children seem to go through a similar progression in working out the meanings of number words. So first, they're 1-knowers, which means if you give them a pile of things and you say, can you give me 1? They can give you 1. If you ask for anything more, they'll just give you a bunch. Their concept is 1 more than 1. After about 6 or 9 months, they learn 2. Their concept is 1, 2, more than 2. And then after some more months, they learn 3 and then possibly 4, though that's going to get into the weeds of cognitive science where there's disagreement. Are there really 4-knowers and 5-knowers? We don't need to get into those details. Regardless, soon after they become 3-knowers, right around when they would become 4-knowers, children seem to make a qualitative leap in thinking. And now they can give you any number that they can count to in their count list. And this is a conceptual leap, and this is when they're considered cardinality principle knowers. So this basic science is still happening. We still have a lot of work to do here on the fundamental research side of things. And fortunately, the Many Numbers Network is helping to refine our understanding of the developmental progression across cultures. This is an international consortium of over 100 research labs in cognitive science and early childhood education, examining how children think about early numbers. So that's really exciting, and it's really exciting for me to be a part of that group. But here's what we do know. Even though we haven't figured everything out yet, we do know that a child's understanding of the link between counting and cardinality is one of the most important early math milestones. The earlier a child understands the cardinality principle, the better their later math outcomes. And it makes sense if you think about what cardinality is, right? If I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, the last number I say in that ordered list tells me the total number in the set. It's so easy for adults. That is a key conceptual leap, and it's quite challenging for preschoolers. And you need to understand that. You need to understand what a set is to do almost any elementary math. You have to know what a set is to add to sets, to subtract from sets, to compare sets, to order sets, etc. So if there's one takeaway, oh, actually 2 takeaways. Obviously, early math is really important. I want you to take away that. But the second thing I really want you to take away is pay more attention to children's understanding of the cardinality principle, because most of the pediatric screeners do not include it. It's probably the single most important thing about early math that parents don't know. They all overestimate their child's understanding of the cardinality principle. They assume if their child can recite numbers, if they can count from 1 to 20 when they're 3 or 4, they think, oh, my child's like a math genius. Or if they can like identify numerals, like the symbols. Those are important things. I'm not saying they aren't, but all parents basically think if my kid can do that, that's all they need to know. Understanding of cardinality is much more important, and it's something that almost nobody knows about. So take that away with you if it's the only thing that you take away. Okay, Several years ago, the Institute of Education Sciences gathered an expert panel to review the state of the evidence for teaching math to young children. And they produced an IES practice guide with several recommendations. And for each recommendation, they tell you the level of evidence behind their recommendation. And the recommendation in this practice guide with the best level of evidence was teaching number and operations using a specific developmental progression. So not just teach numbers and operations, not just throw any kind of math talk that you can do to children. There is a very specific developmental progression of early math skills, and teaching children in that order is an important aspect of children's early numerical cognition. So the first thing you want to do is provide opportunities for children to practice recognizing the total number in small sets, collections of 1, 2, and 3 without counting. How many is this? 2. That is sometimes called subitizing. That is the first recommendation. After children can sort of, how many fingers am I holding up? How many fingers am I holding up? How many cookies do you have on your plate? This, by the way, builds on children's intuitive understanding of a small number of objects and keeping track of like family members, important toys. That is what you're building on there. After they can do that, the next step is going to be to promote counting with one-to-one correspondence. You want to count and help them understand we are counting with one-to-one correspondence so that we can figure out how many items are in this collection. When you do this, first you want to start with small sets, and then you want to work collections that are bigger than 3. And when you're working bigger collections, because children don't have automatic access to the numbers above the subitizing range, you need to do 2 things with every large set. You need to both count the set and label the total of the set. So this is also something that I feel like a lot of people don't know. When you're counting a set with kids, you want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5. Or, oh, look, we have 4 chairs at the table. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hearing the count and the cardinal label of the same set is an important piece of constructing understanding of cardinality. This allows children to make the key insight necessary to construct an understanding of cardinality. Once children can recognize and count collections, now it's time to compare and order collections. At this point, you're going to need to be starting to teach some math vocabulary: more, fewer, equal, same amount. Playing games like chutes and ladders here, very important. Provide exposure to the number line. Talk about what comes before, what comes after. The next thing after this is we want to help children use both number words and numerals to represent quantities. So you have a set, what's the word that goes with it? What's the numeral that goes with it? And then finally, after children have this foundation, that's when you want to encourage simple arithmetic using playful context. You have 2 blocks. What if I give you one more? How many will you have? You had 5 grapes and then you ate 2. How many are left? So this developmental progression, I think, is probably, this is my hypothesis, I don't know for sure, but I think this is why the previous study, building parents' math talk and math activities, may have not led to the kinds of benefits for children's learning that we might want to see. I think this developmental progression helps us understand that not all math talk or home math activities will be equal. It's important to match the input with children's placement on the developmental learning trajectory. If I'm a parent talking about adding and subtracting blocks, but my child doesn't know how to count with one-to-one correspondence or have any understanding of the cardinality principle, it's going to be less likely to stick. We can recognize this if we step back for a moment and say, we can't just start teaching a 3-year-old trigonometry. Nobody's going to think that we're going to expect them to learn, oh, let's make an environment rich with trigonometry. That isn't going to make a 3-year-old understand trigonometry. It's kind of harder for us to understand as adults when we're thinking about these concepts that are so easy to us. They all seem like such easy concepts that, that we don't take the minute to say, I mean, it's like a theory of mind thing. The children don't think these are easy concepts. We have to build the understanding very intentionally. Okay, so where does that leave you? Do you have to become an expert in the developmental math trajectory? Well, I would say that would be nice, but I don't think so. We probably do need a lot more collaborations. We need a lot more collaborations across pediatrics and developmental cognitive science. I think the Mount Sinai Parenting Center is intending to do just that. They are obviously the world leader in that. And I think it's super important. I think for you, you can certainly raise awareness of the importance of early math talk. I think it's something that parents don't know. I think even the importance of early math skills at the start of kindergarten, I think a lot of parents don't actually know that. You can talk about there being a developmental learning trajectory, and you can talk about some of the key milestones, especially understanding of cardinality. You could make some suggestions for playful interactions. You could say, like, why don't you try asking at snack time who has more? Or you could, similar to the video, you could have a pretend, game where you have a stuffed animal and you give them a pile and you kind of assess, where are they on that developmental trajectory? Are they a 1 knower? Are they a 2 knower? Or do they have the cardinality principle? If we can help parents engage in conversations aligned with their child's point on the developmental trajectory, then I think we're going to be able to do a lot better job of affecting children's actual learning. And of course, I wouldn't want to suggest that math's the only thing. And even within math, we need to focus on the whole child. I care a lot about math. I care a lot about math achievement, but I understand there are a lot of competing demands. Even within math, let's imagine that we find a particular intervention raises children's math test scores, but it increases math anxiety, or it decreases children's enjoyment of math, or it reduces the amount of time they spend playing games with their peers, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? We can't really say we're succeeding if we're only focusing on one thing. Some early interventions may be better at supporting joint attention or collaboration. Some may strengthen a child's math identity. Some may foster dialogue and positive relationships between children and caregivers, or between and among peers. We have to keep in mind the whole child. And before intervening really on anything, we should probably ask ourselves, what is our theory of change? What is our theory of change? We need to develop theories of change so that we can test if what we're doing is having the intended consequences. So to recap, early math is a powerful predictor of life outcomes. Pediatric care providers are currently underemphasizing math, yet I think they're uniquely positioned in this world to help level the playing field of an incredibly important skill before children start formal schooling. Several initiatives have started to show that it's absolutely feasible to integrate early math into pediatric care. And in fact, they successfully change parent behaviors. But so far, not that I know of, at least, I haven't seen any that actually move the needle on children's outcomes. And I think that has to be our next goal, developing clear theories of change so we can design guidance and treatments and interventions that align with how children actually learn math. We don't just want more math talk. We don't just want more math activities. We need to focus on the quality of the interactions and whether they match the child's level of cognitive development. One math milestone that I hope you will remember is children's understanding of the link between counting and cardinality. So just because a child can count to 20 doesn't mean that they understand why we count or what 20 means. To promote understanding, we have to encourage parents to both count and label the same set out in the environment when they're doing. And to check children's developmental progression, they might give a stack of objects and ask for a specific number of those objects. And then finally, I'll say this, I think partnerships between cognitive and developmental scientists and pediatric care providers can help us test new ideas, help us build stronger theories of how things develop, and also refine what works, especially in the early years before children are in formal schooling. Together, I think we can use this incredible pediatric infrastructure that's already in place to give every child a stronger start on the path to success in school and in life.